Yes, yes. This is just a little example that came up in the recent science news that we like to keep a watching brief on and write about it in our newsletters. And we we are often accused of having blind faith, and the evolutionists insist that they only deal with facts. Uh, well, that's not quite true. We need to understand what are observable facts and what is faith in terms of what you believe before you come to the facts, because no one comes completely neutral or with a blank slate. We all have a worldview about how we believe the world got here and how it works. And here's just a very simple example. Um, these are some Australian cockatoos, and they're out the back of where I live. Actually, there's an apple tree over the back fence there, and the cockatoos are very fond of apples. And they will fly into this tree and they will proceed to pick the apples and use their feet a little bit like hands. They'll pick the apples and then they'll hold them and chew them away and then discard them onto the ground. And this is a function that a lot of birds have, and it's called, if I can just get the slides to advance. Here we go. It's called pedal dexterity. Now, pedal refers to feet, and dexterity means the ability to use their feet to grasp and manipulate objects. And some birds are really, really clever at this. Anyway, a group of scientists decided that they would do a survey of birds that are able to do this, because not all birds can, but some of them are really, really clever at being able to grasp and manipulate objects. And they found that there were two main groups that were able to do this. One is the groups of parrots, where cockatoos are a group within that wider group called parrots. And the others were raptors, and that's a picture of an osprey there. And they're really clever in that they will go fishing and they'll swoop down and pick up a fish and then carry it away. But in order to make their flight a little bit more aerodynamic, they will actually turn the fish around to face forward there like that, so it's much more streamlined. That is really, really clever to be able to do that with their feet. And the other group that some birds can do this or can use their feet like that are some of the crow family, the corvids. And so, having analysed this data, and it was a careful and thorough study of the different behaviours and abilities that are involved in this, what did they then do with that data? I mean, it's all very well, yes, we now have a whole pile of facts. How are we going to put this together? And this is typical of biology today. You have to put everything into an evolutionary mindset. So what they did is they then looked at the bird evolutionary tree. Now, this is how they draw up evolutionary trees these days. You don't get a nice sort of thing that looks like a real tree. In order to fit it all in, they tend to draw these circles, but that is actually a tree. It's just been bent around. And they came up with this extraordinary conclusion. This is the caption underneath this diagram in the scientific paper in Communications Biology. And this is their description of that diagram: ancestral state reconstruction. Now, notice that reconstruction. In other words, this is something that has been built in the mind with a precursor model. Now, again, notice that word. This is not what anybody has actually observed. This is a model. This is an idea that is in their mind. And the precursor model shows that after a single evolution of a precursor state, in other words, some event happened back in time, and if you read the paper, they estimate that back in time it was about 60 million years. at the base of all core land birds, and that's the scientific name for those, foot use evolved repeatedly at least 20 times. Now, people scoff at us for believing by faith that God created once, but I think the evolutionists have to have about a lot more faith than us, in this case 20 times as much faith. Uh, and they believe that each time that happened by itself. Uh, and that's not the record. We have one item in our fact file about the appendix supposedly evolving 36 times, and I think Craig has a record that's even better than that. So we need to distinguish between what are the facts and what is faith, and it is not wrong to have both. We can observe what happens in the real world in the present these days, and so the observed facts are that parrots and raptors and some corvids have this pedal dexterity, and there are all sorts of variations on it. And that is good observable facts, and you can go out and observe this yourself, as I did watching the cockatoos eat apples over the back fence there. But this is pure faith, because no one was there to see this precursor state at the base of all core land birds suddenly evolve this ability all by itself. Now, that doesn't mean we can't study how it works. We can study the brain development that's involved in this, how the birds' bones and tendons and muscles work. We can study all of those things. Nothing wrong with that. But to say that it evolved all by itself 20 times, that requires a lot of faith. So, in fact, faith gets imposed on the facts no matter who you are. After all, who was there to observe that single precursor of parrots and raptors and corvids? Who said they are all connected? That's a presupposition. Whereas the Bible tells us that birds were made according to their kind. So there will be different kinds of fully formed birds, fully functional birds, and they will be a bit different. Who saw this evolve and re-evolve 20 times? So don't tell me that creationists live by faith and evolutionists live by facts. We all live by both faith and facts. You have to understand where your faith comes from. I think, Craig, you've got a good example of something that supposedly re-evolved a lot more times than 20.